My phone lit up with a bank alert while I was still in the Target parking lot, and I saw a charge for a hotel key deposit in my husband's name, and I stayed quiet even though something in me cracked. I stared at the screen, hands frozen on the steering wheel, because the timestamp was right now, and he'd promised he was already at work. My name is Genevieve. I am 34 years old, and I work as a claims adjuster for an insurance company, which means I live inside other people's lives for a living. That morning had started normal, too normal. My husband Grant kissed my forehead while I was packing our daughter's lunch, told me he had an early meeting, and rushed out with his travel mug like he was late for a flight. He was always neat, always predictable. The kind of man who folded receipts and put them in a drawer like order could protect him from everything. We have been married 11 years, together 15, 2 kids, a mortgage, a backyard swing set that squeaks when the wind hits it, the kind of life people point at and call stable. So when that bank alert hit, my first instinct was not rage. It was denial, then shame, then this cold, creeping awareness that my body recognized the truth before my brain could accept it. I tapped the transaction details, hoping it was a scam, but the merchant name was real, a downtown hotel, the kind with valet parking and a lobby that smells like lemon polish and money. And the charge description said key deposit, not a dinner, not a drink, not something you could explain away as a client lunch. My hands were shaking. I forced myself to breathe slowly, like I do at work when someone is yelling at me on the phone and I cannot hang up. I opened our shared account history and scrolled back. Turns out there were more. Small charges, spread out, a coffee shop we never go to, a garage parking fee near the riverfront, a boutique gym subscription 2 months old that I had never heard of. And the worst part was, I could see exactly how careful he had been. The amounts were low enough to slide under the radar. The days were spaced out enough to look random. Despite that, the key deposit was sloppy. Loud, a mistake. Grant never makes mistakes unless he thinks nobody is watching. I drove home on autopilot, groceries forgotten. Our house was quiet. Sunlight lay across the living room rug like nothing had changed, like the walls did not know the truth. I stood in the kitchen for a long minute and stared at the family calendar on the fridge. Dentist on Thursday, soccer on Saturday. Grant early meetings scribbled in his neat handwriting. I didn't argue, I watched. That afternoon, I did what I always do when a story doesn't add up. I started building a file in my iPhone Notes app. Simple, dates, times, merchant names, locations. I labeled it inventory because if I named it what it was, I might fall apart. At 5:42, Grant texted me, running late. Traffic, might grab dinner with the guys from work. Traffic, dinner, guys. 3 soft lies in 1 sentence. I answered, okay, drive safe. I even added a heart, which made me feel sick. Then suddenly, our daughter ran into the kitchen and handed me Grant's work phone. Mommy, Daddy left this on the counter. My stomach dropped. Grant did not forget his phone. Not ever. He was the man who charged everything to 100% before bed and set his alarms like a ritual. The screen was locked. I shouldn't have touched it. But my thumb hovered, and I realized something that made my skin go cold. I knew his passcode. Not because I was snooping, because he had asked me to set it years ago when he didn't want to forget. I stared at that phone like it was a live wire. I could feel the weight of the choice in my chest. The old version of me wanted to put it back and pretend I never saw anything. The new version of me, the version who had survived too many accidents at work, the version who had learned that the truth always leaves fingerprints, picked it up. I unlocked it. There were no texts that screamed affair, no heart emojis, no obvious flirting. That was what shocked me. It was clean, almost professional. But I opened his email, and that is when I saw it. A calendar invite, private, no subject, just a time block. Every Wednesday at 7:00 a.m. location hidden. Organizer name was a single letter. And in the notes section, a line that didn't belong in a meeting invite. Room 1512. I felt my face go hot. My ears started ringing. I stared at that number until it blurred, because my mind didn't want to admit what my eyes already understood. Room 1512, the same hotel as the key deposit. The proof already existed. I just collected it quietly. I set the phone down exactly where my daughter had found it. I wiped my fingerprints off the glass with the hem of my shirt, not because I was guilty, but because I needed to stay invisible. When Grant walked through the door at 8:11, he looked tired in the way people look when they have been performing. He kissed the top of my head, asked about the kids, then glanced around the kitchen too quickly. He knew his phone was missing. I smiled anyway. "Hey," I said, light and easy. "Your bank alert went off today. Did you change something with the account?" His eyes flickered, just for a second. Then he laughed, casual, like he was already prepared. "Probably a fraud attempt. I will call in the morning." "Fraud attempt, sure." I nodded like I believed him. I served dinner. I asked about his day. I watched him talk. Grant's lies were not dramatic. They were smooth, practiced. He didn't over-explain. He kept things vague. He made his story small so it didn't invite questions. But I wasn't asking questions to understand. I was asking questions to measure. After the kids were asleep, he went to shower. His work phone buzzed on the counter, and I saw a notification banner flash across the screen. New calendar invite accepted. Accepted. Not created, not declined, accepted. My throat tightened. I opened the phone again, faster this time, less shaking, more focus. The organizer letter, the single initial, had a name behind it now, because the invite updated with contact info. Waverly. I didn't know a Waverly. I tried to scroll the details, and right when I thought I was finally about to see something clear, the phone went black. Low battery warning. Of course. I stood there in the dark kitchen holding his phone like it was a weapon, and for a second I wanted to scream. Not at him, at myself, for not noticing earlier, for trusting the calm, for confusing routine with loyalty. But I didn't scream. I plugged the phone in. I put it down. I went to the living room and sat on the couch with the lights off, listening to the shower run upstairs. Then, because my brain couldn't stop, I did something that scared me. I opened the family iCloud photo album on my own phone, the one we use for the kids, the one that automatically uploads pictures from everyone's devices. I scrolled to today. There were no new family photos, no pictures of soccer or lunch boxes, but there was one image that hadn't finished syncing yet, just a gray thumbnail with a loading circle. It wasn't from my phone. It was from his. And the file name was a timestamp. 07:18 a.m. My stomach turned. Wednesday. I tapped it. The picture loaded, slowly, like it was making me earn it. It was a mirror selfie. Not of him alone. 2 bodies, 2 reflections. A hotel bathroom, bright lights, marble counter. His hand was visible, wedding ring removed, resting beside a woman's watch on the sink like it was nothing. And in the corner of the mirror, I saw a lanyard hanging from her wrist. A badge clip. Clean white plastic with dark letters. Claims department. I stopped breathing. Waverly wasn't a random woman. She was from my world. The person who seemed outside had been standing near me the entire time. Quick real-life pause, this part is for me. Some nights I'm editing and I want to quit, but then I see your comments and I keep going. Like, subscribe, and tell me your city, state, or country. All right, back to the story. I sat there in the dark, and my first thought was so ugly it shocked me. Not, how could he do this? But, how long have they been laughing at me in the same building? I went to work the next morning with my face perfectly composed. That was the skill my job taught me. You can be bleeding inside and still sound polite on the phone. You can be shattered and still type in neat little boxes. I didn't confront Grant. Not yet. I packed his lunch like normal. I kissed him goodbye like normal. I told him to have a good meeting. He smiled at me, and I watched his eyes, and I realized the worst part. He wasn't nervous. He was confident. That's when I realized He thought my love made me blind. At my office, I didn't march into HR. I didn't tell my best friend. I didn't cry in the bathroom. I opened the company scheduling system we use for claims rotations. Not hacking, not illegal, just the normal tools I was allowed to use. I typed in one name, Waverly. And there it was, a pattern. Every Wednesday morning, her status changed to field visit, even though her assigned region didn't include downtown. And every Wednesday, a different supervisor approved it. My supervisor. I felt my pulse slam in my neck. Micro twist number 1. This wasn't only a secret relationship. It was protected. I opened the approval logs, clicked into the digital signature history, and the timestamps matched the hotel mornings. Approved late Tuesday night, right after Grant would fall asleep on the couch. I let it happen, and that's exactly what they missed. I wasn't panicking. I was documenting. I forwarded the approval history to my personal email. I didn't label it revenge. I labeled it policy, because policy is what makes people afraid at work. Then I did something even quieter. I scheduled a routine audit. Not an accusation, not a complaint, just an audit request, the kind that happens all the time. I had access to submit them as part of quality control, and I knew exactly what an audit does to people who think they are untouchable. It makes them talk. It makes them scramble. It makes them expose themselves. At 11:06 a.m., I got a Teams message from my supervisor. Genevieve, can you step into my office for a quick chat? My stomach clenched, but I stood up calmly. I walked down the hallway like I belonged there because I did. I pushed the door open. My supervisor smiled too widely. Waverly was sitting in the chair beside her desk, legs crossed, holding a coffee she didn't even try to hide. Waverly looked at me like we were strangers. And on her left hand, glittering under the fluorescent light, was a ring that looked a lot like mine. My supervisor's voice was syrupy. Close the door, Genevieve. We need to talk about your performance. I shut the door gently. I sat down slowly. I kept my face soft. Because right then, I understood micro twist number 2. They weren't only hiding something. They were about to make me the problem. My supervisor slid a thin folder across her desk like it was a kindness, not a threat. Waverly took a slow sip of her coffee and kept her eyes on the wall behind me, like I was a noise she had learned to ignore. I felt my heart pounding in my throat, but I kept my hands still in my lap. I knew this move. I have written denial letters to people who were telling the truth because the system was built to protect itself. Now the system was sitting 3 feet away, smiling at me. My supervisor said my numbers had dipped. She said I had been missing small details. She said I seemed distracted lately. She said concerned, the way someone says it when they are about to push you off a cliff and want credit for offering a hand first. Waverly finally looked at me, just a flicker, then away again. Her expression was almost bored, but her fingers kept tapping the side of her cup, fast and nervous, like her body was betraying her calm performance. I nodded, like I was listening, like I was grateful. Inside, humiliation washed through me so hard it made my face burn. Not because they were criticizing my work, because I could hear the real message underneath it. We know you are alone in this room. We have decided what you are. You cannot prove otherwise. My supervisor opened the folder and turned it so I could see. A performance improvement plan, 30 days, weekly check-ins, extra monitoring, a line about professional conduct and another line about company reputation. Then she leaned back and said, softly, if you sign this today, we can treat it as support. If you refuse, it becomes insubordination, and then we have to take other steps. I could hear my pulse. I could smell the cheap air freshener in her office, something floral and fake. I could also feel the weight of Grant's hotel mirror photo sitting in my phone like a loaded gun. But I did not pull it out. I didn't accuse directly. I asked one small question. I said, can I have a copy for review? And can you show me the documented coaching you gave before this plan, with dates and notes? My supervisor blinked, just once. The smile stayed, but it tightened. She had expected me to cry or argue or apologize. She had not expected me to talk like someone who understood process. She said, "We can provide the documentation." I said, "Great, and I also want to know who requested this meeting, because I saw your calendar was blocked as confidential." I kept my voice calm, like it was a casual curiosity. Waverly's tapping stopped. My supervisor's pen hovered over the paper. She said, "Genevieve, are you saying you think this is personal?" I let my face soften. "No, I just want to do this correctly." That was the point. I was not making it personal. I was making it procedural, because procedure leaves footprints. She pushed the folder closer and said, "Sign today," and we moved forward. I picked up the pen. My hand did not shake. I signed. Not because I agreed with her, but because I wanted them to believe I was contained. I wanted them relaxed. I wanted them careless. Waverly's shoulders dropped and I saw it. Relief. They thought my fear was a weapon. I turned it into a trap. When I walked out, my supervisor called after me, "Keep your head up. We all want you to succeed." I smiled at her, polite, and closed the door. In the hallway, my legs felt weak. I went into the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and pressed my fist against my mouth so I wouldn't make a sound. Tears came hot and fast. Not dramatic, not loud, just pure grief. 11 years of marriage, 15 years together, and now I was being cornered at work by the woman he was meeting in hotel rooms. I stared at the stall door and forced myself to breathe until my vision cleared. Then I stood up, washed my face, and went back to my desk. Because revenge does not start with a scream, it starts with a list. At lunch, I opened my notes file again. Inventory, I added a new section, workplace. I logged the time of the meeting, the names present, the exact phrases used. I wrote down the threat about insubordination. I wrote down the fact that Waverly was there, not HR, not a neutral witness, but a person with no business being in a performance conversation. Then, I did the quietest thing I could think of. I emailed the audit request to compliance. Not accusing anyone, just requesting a review of field visit approvals for our department, because a pattern had been flagged in quality control metrics. I attached nothing, yet. I let it sit like bait, clean and innocent. By 3:00 p.m., my supervisor had sent me a chat message that was too casual. "How are you feeling after our conversation? Want to talk?" I responded, feeling motivated. "Thank you for supporting me." She read it immediately. That night, I went home and acted normal. I made dinner. I helped with homework. I laughed at something my son said, even though it felt like my mouth belonged to someone else. Grant came in later than usual, smelling like the citrus soap hotels use. He kissed my cheek, asked about my day, and I watched his eyes scan me for damage. I kept my voice calm. Work was fine, just busy. He nodded like he was relieved. Then he asked, too lightly, "You seem quiet lately. Everything okay?" I looked up at him and gave him the kindest smile I could manage. Just tired. He reached out and brushed my hair behind my ear, like tenderness could erase betrayal. His wedding ring was back on, perfectly placed, like a prop. I wanted to throw up. After the kids went to bed, he sat on the couch and scrolled his phone. I sat beside him with a blanket over my legs, and I let the silence stretch until he started to fidget. Then I said, "By the way, did you switch hotels for work stuff? Our bank alert showed a deposit." He didn't freeze. He didn't flinch. He just leaned back and sighed like I was being mildly annoying. That was when I knew how long he had been rehearsing. He said it was for a client event. I got stuck hosting, you know how it is. I nodded slowly, like I understood. But my brain was already collecting the details. He did not ask what hotel. He did not ask what charge. He just offered a story that was meant to cover anything. That's when I realized he had no idea how much I already knew. I didn't argue, I watched. The next morning, my burner phone, the one I kept hidden in the back of my sock drawer for emergencies, I never spoke out loud. It buzzed with a blocked number. I answered, and a woman's voice said my name in a careful tone. "This is compliance. We received your audit request. Can you come by at 2:00 to clarify scope?" My stomach flipped, but I said yes. At 2:00, I sat in a small room with beige walls and a tiny camera in the corner. The compliance officer was a woman named Arden. She looked tired, like she had seen too many people cry in that chair. Arden asked why I requested the audit. I kept my voice steady and said I noticed unusual approval patterns, and I wanted to make sure we were following policy. Arden nodded, then asked, "Are you aware of any conflict of interest related to these approvals?" My mouth went dry. This was the moment where I could burn everything down, or I could place the match quietly and walk away. I chose quiet. I said, "I am aware of potential conflicts, yes. I have not made accusations, but I have documentation if you need it." Arden's eyes sharpened. Documentation changes everything. It turns a story into a case. She said, "If you provide it, we can open a formal review. If you do not, we have limited options." I looked at her and felt my throat tighten. Part of me wanted to protect the life I had built. The kids, the stability, the illusion that our family was intact. But another part of me, the part that had been shrinking for months without me noticing, stood up inside my chest like it had finally found air. I said, "I will provide it." Arden slid a simple form across the table, asking for a statement of facts. No emotion, just dates, times, and what I personally observed. It was my language. So I wrote about the calendar invite. I wrote about the approval logs. I wrote about the performance meeting with Waverly present. I wrote about the iCloud photo timestamp and the hotel. I did not write Grant's name. Not yet. I kept the focus on policy, on conflict, on misuse of field status, on the risk to the company. Because if you want the machine to move, you feed it what it recognizes. Arden read my statement silently, then said, "You understand this may involve interviews, and it may involve IT access." I nodded, I understand. When I left the building, my hands were cold. The sky looked too bright. Everything looked normal, and I felt like I was walking through a town where nobody could see the fire spreading under the streets. That weekend, Grant suggested we go to brunch. He sounded cheerful, like he was proud of himself for acting married. I agreed. At brunch, he held my hand across the table and told me he loved me. He talked about our son's college plans, our daughter's next game, a small trip we should take in the spring. He was building a future while standing on a lie. I smiled and nodded, and I let him talk. Because the next Wednesday was coming. And I already knew what room number they liked. Wednesday morning came with a cold rain that made the street look slick and new, like the world was trying to rinse itself clean. Grant moved through the kitchen in his usual routine, coffee, keys, jacket, a quick kiss, and that calm tone he used when he wanted me to believe he had nothing to hide. I watched him from the sink, hands in soapy water, and I felt something settle inside me. Not rage, not panic, focus. He said he had an early check in downtown. I said, "Have a good day." My voice sounded normal, which scared me a little. The moment his taillights vanished, my burner phone buzzed in the pocket of my robe. Arden's voice was quiet. "We are opening the review today. I need you available. Keep your schedule clear." I didn't ask what that meant. I already knew. Companies do not move fast unless something about to explode threatens them too. I got the kids on the bus, then drove to work with my hands steady on the wheel. I didn't cry. I didn't pray. I didn't even turn on music. I just listened to the sound of my own breathing and tried not to think about the hotel room number like it was a stain on my skin. At 9:12, I got another message from my supervisor. "Come to my office again at 10. We need to discuss your progress plan." I stared at the screen and felt my stomach tighten. They were trying to pull me into a private room again. They were trying to control the story before anyone else could hear it. I replied, "Absolutely. I will be there." Then I forwarded the message to Arden. At 9:26, Arden replied with 2 words. Do nothing. So I did exactly that. I went to my desk, opened my laptop, and worked like a woman who had no secrets. At 9:58, my supervisor appeared at my cubicle, smiling too brightly. Her voice was sweet. Genevieve, come on, let's not be late. Waverly was with her, dressed sharper than usual, hair perfect, lips glossy, like she was walking into a photo shoot instead of an ambush. I stood up, picked up my notebook, and followed them down the hallway. I kept my shoulders relaxed. I kept my face soft. I smiled anyway. But as we approached my supervisor's door, I saw 2 people standing in the corridor near the conference room across the hall. Arden, holding a tablet, and an HR manager I recognized, Reed, with a plain expression and a folder under his arm. My supervisor's steps faltered, just a fraction. Waverly's smile twitched. Arden spoke first, calm and clear. Actually, we are meeting in here. She pointed to the conference room. My supervisor tried to recover. This is a performance conversation. It can stay private. Reed's voice was even, not anymore. Compliance has opened a formal review. HR will be present. Waverly's mouth opened like she was going to protest, then closed again. She looked at my supervisor, waiting for instructions, and for the first time I saw the power dynamic clearly. My supervisor was the shield. Waverly was the blade. And I was supposed to be the target. They walked into the conference room like people entering a courtroom they didn't know was waiting for them. I sat at the far end of the table, hands folded, posture calm. Arden sat beside Reed. My supervisor and Waverly took the seats across from them. Arden didn't look at me for permission. She didn't need to. She opened her tablet and said, "We are here to discuss misuse of field visit status, conflict of interest, and potential fraud exposure. We are also here to address retaliation concerns related to a performance plan that appears to have been initiated after an audit request." My supervisor's face went pale. Waverly's eyes snapped to mine, sharp and angry, like I had betrayed her by refusing to stay quiet. My supervisor said, "This is ridiculous. Genevieve has been struggling, and we were trying to support her." Arden nodded once. Then she turned her tablet toward them and said, "We pulled the approval logs." She scrolled. The screen reflected in the glossy conference table. Dates, times, approvals, the same pattern I had seen, now displayed in a format that looked official and unforgiving. Reed asked, "Why was an employee not involved in management present during a performance meeting?" My supervisor glanced at Waverly, then back. Waverly is a senior adjuster. She was mentoring. Arden's voice stayed flat. Mentoring does not include attendance in corrective action meetings without HR. That violates policy. Waverly tried to cut in. "I was there because Genevieve has been unstable, and we were worried." The word unstable hit me like a slap. I felt heat crawl up my neck, but I kept my expression neutral. Reed looked at Waverly. "That is a serious claim. Do you have documentation?" Waverly's lips pressed together. She didn't answer. Arden asked my supervisor, "Why did you initiate a performance plan without documented coaching? And why did you request it be signed same day?" My supervisor's hands began to shake. She tried to smile again. "We have discretion." Arden set her tablet down gently, and that small gesture felt louder than a shout. Discretion does not override compliance risk. Then Arden looked at me, finally. "Genevieve, do you want to submit the additional documentation you mentioned?" My heart hammered, but I didn't rush. I reached into my bag and placed a sealed envelope on the table. Inside were printed screenshots of the calendar invite, the approval history, the message ordering me into a private meeting, and one photograph, the hotel mirror selfie, printed with its timestamp visible. I didn't say Grant's name. I didn't have to. Waverly's breath caught. She stared at the photo like it was poison. My supervisor's eyes widened, then slid away, like she couldn't look directly at the proof without burning. Reed's expression didn't change, but his voice sharpened. "This escalates beyond internal policy. We will need it. We will need device review. We will need to contact legal. My supervisor whispered, this is personal. This is about her marriage. Arden didn't blink. It became professional when company time and approvals were used to cover it, and when retaliation occurred in response to a compliance request. Waverly's face twisted. She pointed at me. She is doing this because she is jealous. I kept my voice calm. I am doing this because I am employed here, and I am entitled to a workplace that follows policy. Reed asked Waverly for her device. Company phone and any synced accounts. Waverly froze. Her eyes darted to my supervisor, then to the door, then back. That told me everything. Because people who are innocent don't look for exits. Arden's next words were quiet, but they landed hard. Waverly, refusal will be treated as noncompliance and may result in immediate suspension pending investigation. Waverly's hand trembled as she slid her phone across the table. My supervisor tried to stand. I need to call someone. Reed lifted a hand. Sit down. This is now a formal process. I sat still and watched them lose control, inch by inch. That was the revenge, not a scream, not a scene, just watching the truth do its job. By noon, Waverly was escorted out with an HR rep. My supervisor was placed on administrative leave pending review. Arden didn't celebrate. She just nodded at me like a professional who understood exactly what it costs to tell the truth. But I wasn't done. Work was only one side of the lie. At 1:17, while I was still sitting in my car in the parking garage, my bank app pinged again. Another charge from the downtown hotel. Key deposit. Today. I stared at it and felt something cold and clean inside me. Grant was still doing it, even while the floor was collapsing under his other life. He thought he was untouchable. So I made one call, not to a private investigator, not to anyone who would create drama. I called a divorce attorney. Her name was Harlow. Her voice was calm, and she didn't ask me to relive every pain detail. She asked for facts, assets, accounts, children, safety concerns. I told her I had evidence of infidelity and evidence of workplace misconduct tied to the same person. I told her I wanted my kids protected, and I wanted the house protected, and I wanted this handled quietly. Harlow said, quiet is fine. Quiet is often stronger. That evening, I cooked dinner like normal. I helped with homework. I tucked our daughter in and listened to her talk about a friend's birthday party, and I felt my throat tighten because I knew how much her world was about to change. Grant came home at 7:03, smiling, acting tired, acting like a husband. He kissed my cheek and said, long day. I looked at him and saw a stranger who had worn my life like a costume. I didn't confront him at the table. I didn't do it in front of the kids. I waited until they were asleep, until the house was quiet and the dishwasher hummed in the background. Then I said, we need to talk. Grant's eyes flickered just once. What's wrong? I walked to the kitchen counter and placed two things down, carefully. A copy of the hotel charge alert, printed, and the divorce filing packet, prepared, waiting for his signature or refusal, either way. His face drained of color. Genevieve, what is this? I kept my voice steady. This is me choosing not to be lied to anymore. He tried to reach for my hand. I stepped back. He swallowed hard. Is this about work? Someone said something. That woman, Waverly, she is unstable, she is obsessed, she is trying to cause problems. I stared at him. He was saying the same word they used on me, like it was a spell that could erase reality. I said, I saw the photo. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. I continued, slow and clear. I saw the calendar invite. I saw the room number. I saw your ring off on the counter like our marriage was something you could set down and pick up when convenient. He whispered, it was a mistake. I shook my head once. A mistake is forgetting milk. This was a pattern. His voice rose. Genevieve, don't do this. Think about the kids. I nodded. I am thinking about the kids. That is why I am doing this calmly and legally and without letting you rewrite the story. He stared at the papers, then at me, and his eyes filled with something that looked like panic. He said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want a peaceful home. I want a co-parenting plan that protects them. I want honesty, and I want you to understand something." He waited, breathing hard. I said, "You don't get to call me unstable just because I finally stopped being convenient." Grant's shoulders sagged. His voice went small. "Please, let me explain." I felt a dull ache behind my ribs, the grief of what I thought we had, but grief is not a reason to stay trapped. I said, "You can explain to your lawyer." That night, he slept in the guest room. The next morning, he left without a word. The process moved faster than I expected. Harlow filed. Temporary orders were set. The kids stayed with me in the house. Grant moved into an apartment across town because he didn't want neighbors seeing him pack boxes. At work, it confirmed what Arden suspected. Field status had been used to hide non-work meetings. Messages were deleted, but version history and access logs didn't lie. My supervisor was terminated. Waverly resigned before they could fire her, which didn't save her reputation anyway. 1 week later, Mason, my husband's younger brother, called me. His voice was tight. "I heard what happened. I'm sorry." I didn't ask who told him. Small towns don't keep secrets, not for long. I said, "Thank you." He hesitated, then said something that landed like a final twist. "Genevieve, Grant did this before. Not with you, with his first girlfriend. He didn't tell you because he wanted to be a different man." My stomach turned, but at the same time I felt clarity. It wasn't that I missed signs. It was that he rehearsed being better. Months later, the divorce was finalized. Clean terms, clear boundaries, no shouting, no public humiliation, just paperwork, parenting schedules, and a new quiet rhythm to my life. One Sunday morning, I sat on the porch while my kids played in the yard, and my phone pinged with a final notification from the bank. Grant's access to our old joint account was officially closed. I stared at the message and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. I didn't win because I destroyed him. I won because I refused to let him keep the keys to my peace.